Hello, everyone. My name's Connor Emeny. I recently did an Ironman distance triathlon in Antarctica, and you're watching IronmanHacks.
So hey Connor,
Awesome.
welcome to Ironman Hacks. It's great to have you. Can you tell everybody who you are and what you're about?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Andrew. Great to be here. My name's Connor Emeny. I'm 27 years old. I'm from Canada. At 26 years old, I became the youngest person in the world to do an Ironman on 6 continents, and just a couple of weeks ago, became the first person in the world to do an iron distance on all 7 continents. So as you can imagine, I'm still thawing from Antarctica, but super excited to be here and share a little bit about the journey.
Incredible. So I want to hear about the main event, which is Antarctica. But first, tell me the races you've done on the first 6 continents.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of stumbled into triathlon, I would say recently. My first Ironman distance race was actually March 7th, 2020,
Wow.
in New Zealand. And 10 days later, the pandemic hit. But then when the world opened up, I ended up doing Chattanooga, Tennessee. 2 weeks later, went to Mallorca, Spain, and then 3 weeks after that, did South Port Elizabeth, South Africa. And then a couple months later, went to the Philippines, Subic Bay, and then the sixth Ironman was in Florianopolis, Brazil.
Tremendous. Yeah, great. Amazing. So that means okay, you're the youngest person to do in all of these six, I could say, conventional continents.
Yeah, sanctioned Ironman races on I guess yeah the conventional continents, and then I guess first on 7 unconventionally.
Incredible. So when did you do Antarctica?
Yeah, so I just got back on March 11th. The actual race day was February 21st when I finished. And I was on a 23-day sailing expedition. So a 15-meter boat, as you can imagine, for 23 days with 7 people. Got pretty cozy, but yeah, February 21st is when I finished. I started on February 20th. It took me 32 hours, 42 minutes to complete the iron distance triathlon in Antarctica.
Incredible. Now, can you talk me through, let's say, the swim? How the heck do you swim in Antarctica?
Yeah, I was training in cold conditions in Canada, but nowhere near, what I experienced on race day. It was -1 degrees Celsius because of the salt content. The water is at a higher freezing point. But it took me an hour and 43 minutes. And for comparison, that's 43 minutes slower than my Ironman time in Chattanooga, just because I was so cold and my arms, were like cement blocks. My teeth were frozen, my limbs were cramping. It was just like new challenges I've never faced before. There was a seal like following me on the on the swim. Like the cold wasn't scary enough. It was just, kind of pitch black below me, and then a seal, and just the presence and the aura of it was just so nerve wracking. I was told that these particular seals aren't aggressive; they're just curious. So to be honest, I didn't really have time to think about the
Yeah.
seal. I was just putting my head down. I was like, let's get out of this water as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy.
And how was that managed in terms of safety and so forth? Because obviously it's quite dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a Zodiac, like an inflatable boat, just beside me for safety. That would go back and forth. If a seal got too close, it would kind of go to, fend it off or scare it off. But obviously nothing came as close to be in touching distance. But it did have to go a few times because they were approaching. But we had the safety team there. There's 2 to 4 people depending on the laps. It was a 600-meter length. I did back and forth a few times. But we had, certified medics and safety crew personnel that were ready to pull me out if anything happened, and made sure that, I was responsive and just there for whatever needed to be done.
Right, right. And what kind of wetsuit did you have to wear for that?
So you think I'd have a special,
Yeah.
wetsuit made for something like
Yeah, of
this?
course you would.
I
I
ended
mean, you're in
up
Antarctica. You had to.
I had a De Boer wetsuit, the Norseman 3.0, so it was kind of like a layered system. But really, it was 3.5 millimeters, which is not very thick. And I had to use additional gloves, like 6 millimeter thickness gloves, and a special eye mask, and an additional hood for the extremities, and doubled up on the feet as well. But yeah, it was tough because I tried other suits in training, and I did a bunch of training in cold water over the last 2 years, and I had there's thicker surf suits, but the longer you go, just the more exhausting it is because of the restriction with your arms. So I decided that the De Boer Norseman suit would be the best approach for the race day.
Incredible. And then after that, so how was T1? Let's call it T1. I mean, maybe that's not what you call it, but let's use that term. How was it? What did you do?
Yeah, so I'd say, like the swim was just physical torture. I came out of the water and I was practically hypothermic. It took me 30 minutes just to warm up. Luckily, I had a great crew, and, I've been in conditions like that and had that kind of after drop experience before. But my body was like uncontrollably shaking, and they put my feet in warm water. My brother jumped on me and put my hands on his bare skin just to kind of warm them up. They got like warm soups and liquids in me right away. And we knew that, like, in order to kind of warm up as fast as possible, you have to get back on the bike. So it took about 30 minutes, which is a long transition.
Yeah.
But eventually got back on the bike. And it's a fat bike.
Right.
And I think the crazy part is, the swim was physical torture. The bike was a 200-meter loop, 900 times on a fat bike. So it took me 21 hours. Imagine doing a 200-meter loop for 21 hours. It's just
Man.
mental torture.
It's like physically, yeah, okay. Physically, it's hard. Physically, yeah, sure, it's hard. But mentally, seeing
Yeah,
the same thing so many times, 200 meters. I mean, swimming. Okay, swimming. It was 300 meters. Like the swimming loop was even more luxurious than the cycling loop, right?
exactly. Yeah, that was a real challenge, just the boredom
Oh
of
my
doing the same
gosh.
thing so many times.
What was the surface like? Was it like I've seen it as like gravel or like shale or something like that?
Yeah, so where I did it was called Deception Island in Antarctica on the peninsula, and it's like a kind of a volcanic ash. So it's like an ash, almost like a sand. So I think it's even like I did a bunch of training on snow. I think it's even harder than snow because it's like you're in quicksand in certain parts of it, right? And
Okay.
my initial loop was like a kilometer that I mapped out, that I wanted to do. But when I did the first loop, it was just way too hard to even bike. That I found this like essentially glacier runoff that hardened, and I found 100-meter loop of that, and I was like, okay, I'll just do 100-meter loops back and forth. It sucks, but at least I can ride on this. And when I say ride, it wasn't easy either.
Yeah, you're not on your TT bike Arrow with not with road tires but with TT tires because they're so much faster. Like you're
Exactly.
on big fat tires with low pressure in the like quicksandy like gravel just sinking down, probably just trying to
Exactly.
thaw off from the swim and probably not even sure if it's better than being chased by seals. I don't know, man. It had to get better.
Yeah.
The run. How'd the run go? For sure you warmed up, right?
Exactly. Yeah. At that point, been moving for 20 plus hours and just deprived, and my joints were just like seizing and cramping, and it was just a battle to just get through the run. It was, to be honest with you, it was like a walk run. So I did 100 meter. I did the same loop, if you can imagine that. Like, how ridiculous is that? But I did the same loop for most of the run, and I would just do a 100-meter walk and then a 100-meter run. And that was my strategy until my legs kind of warmed up and enough that I could just get into a slow pace. But yeah, it took me just over 6 hours, which is like, you know, almost double like a normal a normal Ironman kind of race time. So it was a long time.
Incredible, man. I mean, that's just astonishing. I now tell me, like, how did you get there? How did you like? How much did it cost, if I may ask? I mean, I normally wouldn't ask that, but I'm sure everybody out there wants to know because it's not like you just sign up for your, just swipe your credit card on the website, just go to a normal race and pay for your hotels, and it's not that big of a deal. I mean, that's expensive too, but this must have been crazy.
Yeah, it was, super, super expensive, upwards of, $50,000. And um, I had to put a $18,000 deposit on the sailboat just for the trip, and I didn't have that money, so I had to take out a loan and, find sponsorships and partners that could help believe and realize this dream. So it's not easy. I'm still working on my, paying that off. And it was just the willingness to bet on myself no matter what it took, and was going to find a way to make it possible. And super fortunate to be able to have, sponsors and partners that jumped on board. And, we're working on a documentary to have a film team come down and capture it all and turn it into something we can share with the world. But if you can imagine, it all kind of unfolded in the last couple of weeks before I even went. So, you mentioned Doug, who connected us to this day right now, and I actually went to Chicago and tried to meet with a marathon group that was planning to do a marathon down there, and there's a few triathletes looking at, trying to piggyback off the logistics of the marathon group, and there was some like permitting issues, and just like I wanted to go with them, but there's a time constraint. You can only have 11 hours to do your marathon. And I was like, I don't like, I wanted to do the Ironman. I didn't want to do a triathlon, and I didn't want to take the risk of it might not even happen.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, okay, what possible other options are there? There's always a way, I think, to realize your dream. And I started looking into a sailboat and found a sailboat I called Everywhere, you can imagine. And found a sailboat that was willing to do it and had the permits to do it properly. So, yeah, it was just a sheer willpower for, making it happen. And that was kind of my mantra in this whole journey of whatever your goal is, find a way to make it happen.
Well, Connor, I mean, at your age, I don't think this is anything you could ever regret, even though it costs a lot. It won't affect you long term at all, but you will have a lot more, memories and inspiration to give others. I think that's, going to be far worth whatever you paid and whatever freezing conditions you went through, as though I know. But I'm just saying it's a tremendous achievement, and oh man, I applaud you. So good job, and I hope anybody else out there who's inspired by your story can follow you on social media. Where would they go to do that?
Yeah, just Instagram at Connor Emeny, or I have a website, chasingantarctica.com, where I'll be putting updates on the film coming out.
Incredible, Connor. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much. And yeah, let me know when you're doing the North Pole. Maybe I'll come join you.
Sounds great, Andrew. Good to chat. Appreciate you having me on.